Hello, everyone. How are we doing today? I hope we're having a great day. And I know I've been a little bit not consistent with the reading streams, but I'm going to be trying my best to to be a little bit more consistent with it. Things have been complicated, okay? It's not my fault. It's not my fault. It is my fault. I'm completely in control of everything that I do. And I've been bad. Very, very naughty. There we go. Man, we're still very early in the book. So, unfortunately, that means that it's very hard for the book to stay kept open. There we go. Sorry it took me a moment to get the stream starting. I had a little bit of extra stuff that I needed to do and take care of and tend to. Let me just turn up my volume a tiny bit, just so I don't have to strain myself or anything like that. And I know that last time we read a couple of things, but then I got a little bit moody. So we're just gonna go back and we're going to read through the three things that we read last time. But this time, I'm gonna read through everything and be chill. Back to drinking my blackberry and raspberry tea. It is quite lovely indeed. We're gonna be nice and cozy today, aren't we? I'd like to say yes, yes we are, yes we shall. And I hope you all enjoy. There we go. Have to make sure everything is angled correctly and comfortably. There we go. Nice and cozy, nice and comfy. Nice and relaxed, in fact. Why am I yawning so much today? I don't know. It's very strange indeed. Trying to find that good balance of soft voice and confident voice, but you know how it be. There we go. Trying to move it just a little bit more in. Eventually, I want to do a thing where when it stops catching my tracking, it makes me go sleep. But I don't know how to do that exactly. So we'll see. I think it's like I can make it roll an animation that I record when it stops tracking. I don't know. I'll figure it out at some point in time. But for now, let's just all get nice and comfy and relax and enjoy. Just chilling. We are going to start off with The Three Little Men in the Wood. And again, I know I read this one last time, but we gotta figure stuff out. All right. Big deep yawns. There once was a man whose wife died, and a woman whose husband died. And the man had a daughter, and the woman also had a daughter. The girls were acquainted with each other, and went out walking together, and afterwards came to the woman in her house, Then said she to the man's daughter, Listen, tell thy father that I would like to marry him, and then thou uh, shalt wash thyself with milk every morning, and drink wine. But my own daughter shall wash herself with water and drink water. The girl went home and told her father what the woman had said. The man said, What shall I do? Marriage is a joy and also a torment. At length, as he could come to no decision, he pulled off his boot and said, Take this boot. It has a hole in the sole of it. Go with it up to the loft, hang it on the big nail, and then pour water into it. If it hold the water, then I will again take a wife. But if it run through, I will not. Again, it seems like he's trying to weigh the odds in his favor for not getting married. The girl did as she was ordered, but the water drew the hole together, and the boot became full to the top. She informed her father how it had turned out. Then he himself went up, and when he saw that she was right, he went to the window and wooed her, and the wedding was celebrated. No adjective, just it was celebrated. It in fact happened. The next morning, when the two girls got up, there stood before the man's daughter milk for her to wash in and wine for her to drink. But before the woman's daughter stood water to wash herself with and water for drinking. Hmm. Before the man's daughter as well, huh? As before the woman's daughter. Oh no, I skipped a line. Whoopsies. The next morning, when the two girls got up, there stood before the man's daughter milk for her to wash in and wine for her to drink. But before the woman's daughter stood water to wash herself with and water for drinking. On the second morning stood water for washing and water for drinking before the man's daughter, as well as before the woman's daughter. And on the third morning stood water for washing and water for drinking before the man's daughter, and milk for washing and wine for drinking before the woman's daughter. And so it continued. That's strange. I don't understand the switchy. Like, I don't know. I don't understand why it's switching back and forth. The woman became bitterly unkind to her stepdaughter, and day by day did her best to treat her still worse. She was also envious because her stepdaughter was beautiful and lovable, and her own daughter ugly and repulsive. Once in winter, when everything was frozen as hard as a stone, and hill and vale lay covered with snow, the woman made a frock of paper, called her stepdaughter, and said, Here, put on this dress and go out into the wood, and fetch me a little basketful of strawberries. I have a fancy for some. Good heaven, said the girl, no strawberries grow in winter. The ground is frozen, and besides, the snow has covered everything. And why am I to go out in this paper frock? It is so cold outside that one's very breath freezes. The wind will blow through the flop. That is a tongue twister. The wind will blow through the frock, and the thorns will tear it off my body. Wilt thou contradict me again? Said the stepmother. See that thou goest, and do not show thy face again until thou hast the basketful of strawberries. Then she gave her a little piece of hard bread, and said, This will last thee the day, and thought thou wilt die of cold and hunger outside, and wilt never be seen again by me. Evil stepmother do evil stepmother things. Bwah ha 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 ha. Then the maiden was obedient and put on the paper frock and went out with the basket. Far and wide there was nothing but snow, and not a green blade to be seen. When she got into the wood, she saw a small house, out of which peeped three dwarfs. She wished them good day and knocked modestly at the door. I don't know how one knocks modestly, but whatever, it's fine. They cried, "Come in!" and she entered the room and seated herself on the bench by the stove, where she began to warm herself and eat her breakfast. The elves said, "Give us too some of it." "Willingly," she said, and divided her bit of bread in two, and gave them the half. They asked, what dost thou here in the forest in the winter time, with thy thin dress?" "Ah," she answered, "I am to look for a basketful of strawberries, and am not to go home until I can take them with me." When she had eaten her bread, they gave her a broom and said, "Sweep away the snow at the back door with it." But when she was outside, the three little men said to each other, "What shall we give her, as she is so good, and has shared her bread with us?" Then said the first, "My gift is, that she shall every day grow more beautiful." The second said, "My gift is, that gold pieces shall fall out of her mouth every time she speaks." The third said, "My gift is, that a king shall come and take her to wife." Like, the whole gold spitting thing seems like another form of torture. Like, yeah, you're going to be very wealthy, but you're gonna be spitting out gold every time you talk. Not just every time you talk, but like, oh no, it's every time she talks. Okay, so it's you can do like run-on sentences, I guess. And it's not every word she speaks. I guess it's a little bit less terrible. The third said, "Hi, Sumi. Welcome in." Uh, let's see. The girl, however, did as the little men had bidden her, swept away the snow behind the little house with the broom. And what did she find but real ripe strawberries, which came up quite dark red out of the snow. In her joy she hastily gathered her basket full, thanked the little men, shook hands with each of them, and ran home to take her stepmother what she had longed for so much. When she went in and said good evening, a piece of gold at once fell from her mouth. At least she doesn't have to like cough it up, I guess. At least I hope at least that it appears and falls out, and she doesn't have to pass it through her throat. Also, thank you for the lurk, Sumi. Thereupon she related what had happened to her in the wood, but with every word she spoke, gold pieces fell from her mouth, until very soon the whole room was covered with them. Okay, so is it every word, or is it every time she speaks? Because this is going to get very bad very quickly. "Now look at her arrogance," cried the stepsister, "to throw about gold in that way." But she was secretly envious of it, and wanted to go into the forest also, to seek strawberries. The mother said, "No, my dear little daughter, it is too cold, thou mightest die of cold." However, as her daughter let her have no peace, the mother at last yielded, made her a magnificent dress of fur, which she was obliged to put on, and gave her bread and butter and cake with her. What a bitch. What a rude stepmother. The girl went into the forest and straight up to the little house. The three little elves peeped out again, but she did not greet them, and without looking round at them and without speaking to them, she went awkwardly into the room, seated herself by the stove, and began to eat her bread and butter and cake. "Give us some of it," cried the little men, but she replied, "There's not enough for myself, so how could I give it away to other people?" When she had done eating, they said, "There's a broom for thee. Sweep all clean for us outside by the back door." "Humph! Sweep for yourselves," she answered. "I am not your servant." When she saw that they were not going to give her anything, she went out by the door. Then the little men said to each other, "What shall we give her, as she is so naughty, and has a wicked, envious heart, that will never let her do a good turn to anyone?" The first said, "I grant that she may grow uglier every day." The second said, "I grant that every word she says a toad shall spring out of her mouth." The third said, "I grant that she may die a miserable death." That sucks. Sucks for her. The maiden looked for strawberries outside, but as she found none, she went angrily home. And when she opened her mouth and was about to tell her mother what had happened to her in the wood, with every word she said, a toad sprang out of her mouth, so that everyone was seized with horror of her. Just a quick 30-second ad break, really fast. I apologize. So far, this stepdaughter sucks just as much as her mother does. Absolutely fucking horrific. Just so terrible. What her problem? Why she like this? Alright, we're done. Welcome back. Sorry, I'm so cozy. Then the stepmother. Then the stepmother was still more enraged, and thought of nothing but how to do every possible injury to the man's daughter, whose beauty, however, grew daily greater. At length she took a cauldron, set it on the fire, and boiled yarn in it. When it was boiled, she flung it on the poor girl's shoulder and gave her an axe in order that she might go on the frozen river, cut a hole in the ice, and rinse the yarn. She was obedient, went thither, and cut a hole in the ice, and while she was in the midst of her cutting, a splendid carriage came driving up, in which sat the king. The carriage stopped, and the king asked, "My child, who art thou, and what art thou doing here?" Like, what the fuck are you doing out here, you weirdo? Cutting ice, rinsing yarn in the middle of winter? What the hell? "I am a poor girl, and I am rinsing yarn." The king then the king felt compassion, and when he saw that she was so very beautiful, he said to her, "Wilt thou go away with me?" "Ah, yes, with all my heart," she answered, for she was glad to get away from the mother and sister. So she got into the carriage and drove away with the king, and when they arrived at his palace, the wedding was celebrated with great pomp, unlike that other wedding that was only just celebrated, not with any joy or pomp or anything like that. Nothing like that. As the little men had granted to the maiden. When a year was over, the young queen bore a son, and as the stepmother had heard of her great good fortune, she came with her daughter to the palace, and pretended that she wanted to pay her a visit. Once, however, when the king had gone out, and no one else was present, the wicked woman seized the queen by the head, and her daughter seized her by the feet. They lifted her out of the bed, and threw her out of the window, into the stream which flowed by. Then the ugly daughter laid herself in the bed, and the old woman covered her up over her head. When the king came home again and wanted to speak to his wife, The old woman cried, "Hush, hush! That can't be now. She is lying in a violent perspiration. You must let her rest today." The king suspected no evil, and did not come back again till next morning. And as he talked with his wife, and she answered him, with every word a toad leaped out, whereas formerly a piece of gold had fallen out. Then he asked what that could be, but the old woman said that she had got that from the violent perspiration, and would soon lose it again. During the night, however, the scullion saw a duck come swimming up the gutter, and it said, "King, what art thou doing now? Sleepest thou or wakest thou?" Oh boy, ducks talking to people. And as he returned no answer, it said, "And my guests, what may they do?" The scullion said, "They are sleeping soundly too." Then it asked again, "What does little baby mine?" He answered, "Sleepeth in her cradle fine." What a weird just insertion of a poem there. Then she went upstairs in the form of the queen, nursed the baby, shook up its little bed, covered it over, and then swam away, again down the gutter in the shape of a duck. She came thus for 2 nights. On the third she said to the scullion, "Go and tell the king to take his sword and swing it 3 times over me on the threshold." Then the scullion ran and told this to the king, who came with his sword and swung it thrice over the spirit. And at the third time his wife stood before him, strong, living, and healthy as she had been before. Thereupon the king was full of great joy, but he kept the queen hidden in a chamber until the Sunday, when the baby was to be christened. And when it was christened, he said, "What does a person deserve who drags another out of bed and throws him in the water?" "The wretch deserves nothing better," answered the old woman, "than to be taken and put in a barrel stuck full of nails, and rolled downhill into water." Then said the king, "Thou hast pronounced thine own sentence." And he ordered such a barrel to be brought, and the old woman to be put into it with her daughter. And then the top was hammered on, and the barrel rolled downhill until it went into the river. I love how sometimes in these stories the story just kind of it just kind of ends really quick. It's very abrupt endings in this a lot. Just like, "Oh, yeah, cool. Fucking barrel. There you go." It's like, okay, I guess that escalated rather quickly. Just, oh, well, it's not even like a happily ever after, they win the end. It's happily ever after, torment the bad people, the end. Like it's just such rapid fire comeuppance, and it's very hilarious to me. Next up, we're going to be reading The Three Spinners. There once was a girl who was idle and would not spin, and let her mother say what she would, she could not bring her to it. At last the mother was once so overcome with anger and impatience that she beat her, on which the girl began to weep loudly. Now at this very moment the queen drove by, and when she heard the weeping she stopped her carriage, went into the house, and asked the mother why she was beating her daughter so that the cries could be heard out on the road. She's like, "Can you beat your daughter a little bit less just so she doesn't screech enough for me to hear her? I don't like hearing the agonized cries of the pores, okay?" Just the fucking worst queen ever. Then the woman was ashamed to reveal the laziness of her daughter, and said, I cannot get her to leave off spinning. She insists on spinning for ever and ever, and I am poor, and cannot procure the flax. Then answered the queen, there is nothing that I like better to hear than spinning, and I am never happier than when the wheels are humming. Let me have your daughter with me in the palace. I have flax enough, and there she shall spin as much as she likes. The mother was heartily satisfied with this, and the queen took the girl with her. When they were filled from the bottom to the top with the finest flax, wait, what? Oh, herp derp derp derp. I missed like the entire first half of that sentence. Great. Super good at this. The queen took the girl with her. When they arrived at the palace, she led her up into 3 rooms, which were filled from bottom to the top with the finest flax. Now spin me this flax, said she, and when thou hast done it, thou shalt for that. Thou shalt have my eldest son for a husband, even if thou art poor, I care not for that. Thy indefatigable industry is dowry enough. The girl was secretly terrified, for she could not have spun the flax. No, not if she had lived till she was 300 years old, and had sat at it every day from morning till night. When, therefore, she was alone, she began to weep, and sat thus for 3 days without moving a finger. On the third day came the queen, and when she saw that nothing had been spun yet, she was surprised, but the girl excused herself by saying that she had not been able to begin because of her great distress leaving her mother's house. The queen was satisfied with this, but said when she was going away, tomorrow thou must begin to work. When the girl was alone again, she did not know what to do, and in her distress went to the window. Then she saw 3 women coming towards her, the first of whom had a broad flat foot, the second had such a great underlip that it hung down over her chin, and the third had a broad thumb. They remained standing before the window, looked up, and asked the girl what was amiss with her. She complained of her trouble, and then they offered her their help, and said, if thou wilt invite us to the wedding, not be ashamed of us, and wilt call us thine aunts, and likewise wilt place us at thy table, we will spin up the flax for thee, and that in a very short time. Nice. With all my heart, she replied. Do but come in and begin the work at once. Then she let in the 3 strange women, and cleared a place in the first room, where they seated themselves and began their spinning. The one drew the thread uh, and trod the wheel. The other wetted the thread. The third twisted it, and struck the table with her finger. And as often as she struck it, a skein of thread fell to the ground that was spun in the finest manner possible. The girl concealed the 3 spinners from the queen, and showed her, whenever she came, the great quantity of spun thread, until the latter could not praise her enough. When the first room was empty, she went to the second, and at last to the third, and that too was quickly cleared. Then the 3 women took leave, and said to the girl, do not forget what thou hast promised us. It will make thine fortune. Oh my goodness. This is super Faye. Just It's a fake kind of deal. They're just like, oh, we just want to come to the party. And you must not be ashamed of us. You must treat us well. And be super cool. We'll help you. That's such a fucking Faye thing. They just fairies. Not like Tinkerbell, but like, the traditional Fae. When the maiden showed the queen the empty rooms and the great heap of yarn, she gave orders for the wedding, and the bridegroom rejoiced that he was to have such a clever and industrious wife, and praised her mightily. I have 3 aunts, said the girl, and as they have been very kind to me, I should not like to forget them in my good fortune. Allow me to invite them to the wedding, and let them sit with us at the table. The queen and the bridegroom said, why should we not allow that? Therefore, when the feast began, the 3 women entered in strange apparel, and the bride said, welcome, dear aunts. Said the bridegroom, how comest thou by these odious friends? That's fucking rude, okay? Thereupon he went to the one with the broad flat foot and said, how do you come by such a broad foot? By treading, she answered, by treading. Then the bridegroom went to the second and said, how do you come by your falling lip? By licking, she answered, by licking. Then he asked the third, how do you come by your broad thumb? By twisting the thread, she answered, by twisting the thread. On this the king's son was alarmed and said, neither now nor ever shall my beautiful bride touch a spinning wheel. And thus she got rid of the hateful flax spinning. That's a hilarious one with just terrible lessons. Just the worst life lesson ever. It's just like, if you're a lazy piece of shit, just work yourself into a situation where you're in a life or death situation and you have to do the thing that you hate, and then just kind of like make a deal with some creepy old ladies. But like, as long as you acknowledge them and you're nice to them, it'll all work out. It'll be fine. Life lessons with the Grimm brothers. Next up, we're going to be reading the original version of Hansel and Gretel. I actually am thinking about also reading the original book of Peter Pan. Apparently, it's supposed to be like really good in comparison to even the play, because the book uh is the book in here? I don't remember. I don't know. I can't remember if that's a Grimm's Brothers thing or I don't think it is. Because I'm pretty sure it's this other dude, and there's a whole story behind how he wrote Peter Pan and everything. Anyway, the one who wrote the original Peter Pan book, super traumatized, by the way. His mother had a child before him, and that child died very sadly. And then when the author came about and was alive and existed, the mother was like, well, at least my first child will never grow up. Like, at least he'll always be a baby. And that really apparently stuck with the person that wrote the book. Because she was not very kind to him. Because he was getting older. And yeah, it was a kind of fucked up situation. Anyway, and fun fact, hard is another word for near in Old English terms. So, that's I'm gonna explain that for the Hansel and Gretel. Hard by a great forest dwelt a poor woodcutter and his wife and his 2 children. The boy was called Hansel and the girl Gretel. he had little to bite and to break, and once when great scarcity fell on the land, he could no longer procure daily bread. Now, when he thought over this by night in his bed, and tossed about in his anxiety, he groaned and said to his wife, "What is to become of us? How are we to feed our poor children, when we no longer have anything even for ourselves?" "I'll tell you what, husband," answered the woman. "Early tomorrow morning we will take the children out into the forest to where it is the thickest. There we will light a fire for them, and give each of them one piece of bread more. And then we will go to our work and leave them alone. They will not find the way home again, and we shall be rid of them." "No, wife," said the man, "I will not do that. How can I bear to leave my children alone in the forest? The wild animals would soon come and tear them to pieces." "Fair, very fair. Or they'll die of exposure, because that's more likely than them getting eaten by animals. I'm just gonna rip that band-aid off. "Oh, thou fool," she said, "then we must all four die of hunger. Thou mayst as well plane the planks of our coffins, Jesus." And she left him no peace until he consented. "But I feel very sorry for the poor children all the same," said the man. The two children had also not been able to sleep for hunger, and had heard what their stepmother had said to their father. Gretel wept bitter tears and said to Hansel, "Now is all over with us." "Be quiet, Gretel," said Hansel, yeah. "Do not distress thyself. I will soon find a way to help us." And when the old folks had fallen asleep, he got up, put on his little coat, opened the door below, and crept outside. The moon shone brightly, and the white pebbles which lay in front of the house glittered like real silver pennies. Hansel stooped and put as many of them in the little pocket of his coat as he could possibly get in. Then he went back and said to Gretel, "Be comforted, dear little sister, and sleep in peace. Thy daddy will not forsake us." And he lay down again in his bed. One day dawned, but before the sun had risen, the woman came and awoke the two children, saying, "Get up, you sluggards." Wow, that sounds really fucking mean. Okay. Just slug somewhere that's really offended right now. "We are going into the forest to fetch wood." She gave each a little piece of bread and said, "There is something for your dinner, but do not eat it up before then, for you will get nothing else." Gretel took the bread and under his apron. Wait. Gretel took the bread under her apron, and Hansel had the stones in his pocket. Then they all set out together on the way to the forest. When they had walked a short time, Hansel stood still and peeped back at the house. Hansel stood still and peeped back at the house, and did so again and again. His father said, "Hansel, what art thou looking at there, and staying behind for? Mind what thou art about, and do not forget how to use thy legs." "Ah, father," said Hansel, "I am looking at my little white cat, which is sitting up on the roof and wants to say good-bye to me." The wife said, "Fool, that is not thy little cat, that is the morning sun which is shining on the chimneys." Hansel, however, had not been looking back at the cat, but had been constantly throwing one of the white pebble stones out of his pocket on the road. When they had reached the middle of the forest, the father said, "Now, children, pile up some wood, and I will light a fire, that you may not be cold." Hansel and Gretel gathered brushwood together, as high as a little hill. The brushwood was lighted, and when the flames were burning very high, the woman said, "Now, children, lay yourselves down by the fire and rest. We will go into the forest and cut some wood. When we have done, we will come back and fetch you away." Hansel and Gretel sat by the fire, and when noon came, each ate a little piece of bread. And as they heard the strokes of the wood axe, they believed that their father was near. It was not, however, the axe. It was a branch which he had fastened to a withered tree, which the wind was blowing backwards and forward. Oh, and as they had been sitting such a long time, their eyes shut with fatigue, and they fell fast asleep. When at last they awoke, it was already dark night. Gretel began to cry and said, "How are we going to get out of the forest now?" Yes. But Hansel comforted her and said, "Just wait a little, until the moon has risen, and then we will soon find the way." And when the full moon had risen, Hansel took his little sister by the hand and followed the pebbles, which shone like newly coined silver pieces, and showed them the way. They walked the whole night long, and by break of day came once more to their father's house. They knocked at the door, and when the woman opened it and saw that it was Hansel and Gretel, she said, "You naughty children, why have you slept so long in the forest? We thought you were never coming back at all." The father, however, rejoiced, for it had cut him to the heart to leave them behind alone. Not long afterwards there was once more great scarcity in all parts, and the children heard their mother saying at night to their father, "Everything is eaten again. We have one half loaf left, and after that there is an end. The children must go. We will take them after that there. Oh, we will take them farther into the wood, so that they will not find their way out again. There is no other means of saving ourselves. Literally, the only other means of saving yourselves are, one, growing your own food a little bit. That would be rad. Just find some seeds. Uh, two, starting to hunt for animals. Like, they live way out in the forest. I see a picture of a bird here. Like, they can go hunting. They can learn how to hunt for necessity. Like, I don't I don't understand what their whole issue is. Whatever. Yeah. Let's see. The man's heart was heavy, and he thought, "It would be better for thee to share the last mouthful with thy children." The woman, however, would listen to nothing that he had to say, but scolded and reproached him. He who says A must say B likewise, and as he had yielded the first time, he had to do so a second time also. That seems fucked up. People are allowed to change how they feel and what they want. Like, what? The children were, however, still awake and had heard the conversation. When the old folks were asleep, Hansel again got up and wanted to go out and pick up pebbles as he had done before. But the woman had locked the door, and Hansel could not get out. Nevertheless, he comforted his little sister and said, "Do not cry, Gretel. Go to sleep quietly, and the good Sky Daddy will help us." Early in the morning came the woman and took the children out of their beds. Their bit of bread was given to them, but it was still smaller than the time before. On the way into the forest, Hansel crumbled his in his pocket, and often stood still and threw a morsel on the ground. "Hansel, why dost thou look around?" said the father. "Go on." "I am looking back at my little pigeon, which is sitting on the roof, and wants to say good-bye to me," answered Hansel. "Simpleton," said the woman, "that is not thy little pigeon. That is the morning sun that is shining on the chimney." This chick really hates him talking about anything. Why is she so fucking rude? Hansel, however, little by little, threw all the crumbs on the path. The woman led the children still deeper into the forest, where they had never in their lives been before. Then a great fire was again made, and the mother said, "Just sit there, you children, and when you are tired you may sleep a little. We are going into the forest to cut wood, and in the evening when we are done, we will come and fetch you away." When it was noon, Gretel shared her piece of bread with Hansel, who had scattered his by the way. Then they fell asleep, and evening came and went, but no one came to the poor children. They did not wake until it was dark night, and Hansel comforted his little sister, and said, "Just wait, Gretel, until the moon rises, and then we shall see the crumbs of bread which I have strewn about. They will show us our way home again." When the moon came they set out, but they found no crumbs, for the many thousands of birds which fly about in the woods and fields had picked them all up. Hansel said to Gretel, "We shall soon find the way," but they did not find it. They walked the whole night, and all the next day too, from morning till evening, but they did not get out of the forest, and were very hungry, for they had nothing to eat but 2 or 3 berries which grew on the ground, and were probably poisonous. And as they were so weary that their legs could carry them no longer, they lay down beneath a tree and fell asleep. It was now we're in an ad break, so I'm actually going to take this second to relax. Ah, big yawn, big stretch. Mm. Mm. Nice and comfy. Comfy and cozy. And just generally feeling good. Man, I like these stories. They're very entertaining. Except for that one that was like kind of weirdly anti-Semitic. That one I had to kind of translate that one out of anti-Semitism. Yeah. But yeah. So far, I don't really know what my favorite one is. Hmm, I'm not sure. It's actually kind of difficult to pick a favorite one because a lot of them are really good. Uh, the three dwarves honestly were pretty fun, or the three little men in the forest, or whatever. That one was pretty rad. I liked that. They were like, "Wow, this chick's a bitch," and decided to punish her promptly. That was pretty amusing. Okay, now back to it. Ah, ba, ba, ba. It was now 3 mornings since they had left their father's house. They began to walk again, but they always got deeper into the forest, and if help did not come soon, they must die of hunger and weariness. Aw. This book is very sassy. When it was midday, they saw a beautiful snow-white bird sitting on a bough, which sang so delightfully that they stood still and listened to it. And when it had finished its song, it spread its wings and flew away before them, and they followed it until they reached the little house on the roof of which it alighted. And when they came quite up to the little house, they saw that it was built of bread and covered with cakes, but that the windows were of clear sugar. "We will set to work on that," said Hansel, "and have a good meal. I will eat a bit of the roof, and thou, Gretel, can eat some of the window." I feel like that's less nutritious than the bread house. Also fun, it's fun that it's not gingerbread, it's just bread. Just bread and cakes. It will taste sweet. Hansel reached above and broke off a little of the roof to try how it tasted, and Gretel leant against the window and nibbled at the panes. Okay, so the panes, I guess. Yeah. Nibble, nibble, gnaw. Who is nibbling at my little house? The children answered, the wind, the heaven-born wind. It's like, nobody, it's just the wind. We aren't eating your house, no. And went on eating without disturbing themselves. Hansel, who thought the roof tasted very nice, tore down a great piece of it, and Gretel pushed out the whole of one round window pane, sat down, and enjoyed herself with it. Suddenly the door opened, and a very, very old woman, who supported herself on crutches, came creeping out. Hansel and Gretel were so terribly frightened that they let fall what they had in their hands. The old woman, however, nodded her head and said, "Oh, you dear children, who has brought you here? Do come in and stay with me. No harm shall happen to you." That sounds like the most threatening thing a person could ever say. Just, no harm shall happen to you. Oh, okay, I guess. She took them both by the hand and led them into her little house. When good food was set before them, milk and pancakes with sugar, apples, and nuts. Afterwards, two pretty little beds were covered with clean white linen, and Hansel and Gretel lay down in them, and thought they were in heaven. Oh no, that's gonna be in about an hour. Well, no, I think children would take longer to cook than an hour. It depends on if she cuts them up and cooks them all at once. The old woman had only pretended to be so kind. She was in reality a wicked witch, who lay in wait for children, and had only built the little house out of bread in order to entice them there. When a child fell into her power, she killed it, cooked it, and ate it. That was a feast day with her. Witches have red eyes and cannot see far, but they have a keen scent, like the beasts, and are aware when human beings draw near. When Hansel and Gretel came into her neighborhood, she laughed maliciously and said mockingly, "I have them. They shall not escape me again." Again? Again? When were they here before? What are you talking about? Early in the morning, before the children were awake, she was already up, and when she saw both of them sleeping and looking so pretty, with their plump red cheeks, she muttered to herself, "That will be a dainty mouthful." Then she seized Hansel with her shriveled hand, carried him into a little stable, and shut him in behind a grated door. He might scream as he liked. That was of no use. Then she went to Gretel, shook her till she awoke, and cried, "Get up, lazy thing! Fetch some water, and cook something good for thy brother. He is in the stable outside, and is to be made fat. When he is fat, I will eat him." What? Wait. Wait, what? This is a terrible plan. It's an awful plan. She's just like, "Hey, hey, get the fuck up. Go feed your brother. I'm gonna make him nice and fat so I can eat him." Wait, what? What? Gretel began to weep bitterly, but it was all in vain. She was forced to do what the wicked witch ordered her. And now the best food was cooked for poor Hansel, but Gretel got nothing but crab shells. Every morning the woman crept to the little stable and cried, "Hansel, stretch out thy finger that I may feel if thou wilt soon be fat." Hansel, however, stretched out a little bone to her, and the old woman, who had dim eyes, could not see it, and thought it was Hansel's finger, and was astonished that there was no way of fattening him. When 4 weeks had gone by, and Hansel still continued thin, she was seized by him with impatience and would not wait any longer. "Gretel," she cried to the girl, "be active and bring some water. Let Hansel be fat or lean. Tomorrow I will kill him and cook him." And how the poor little sister did lament when she had to fetch the water, and how her tears did flow down over her cheeks. "Dear Sky Daddy, do help us," she cried. "If the wild beasts in the forest had but devoured us, we should at any rate have died together." "Just keep thy noise to thyself," said the old woman. "All that won't help thee at all." Early in the morning, Gretel had to go and hang up the cauldron with the water and light the fire. Jesus, imagine having to prepare to cook your own brother. She's like helping with the prep work. This is fucked up. Early in the morning, Gretel had to go out and hang up the cauldron with the water and light the fire. "We will bake first," said the old woman. "I have already heated the oven and kneaded the dough." She pushed poor Gretel out to the oven, from which flames of fire were already darting. "Creep in," said the witch, "and see if it is properly heated, so that we can shut the bread in." And when once Gretel was inside, she intended to shut the oven and let her bake in it, and then she would eat her too. But Gretel saw what she had in her mind, and said, "I do not know how I am to do it. How do you get in?" "Silly goose," said the woman. "The door is big enough. Just look, I can get in myself. What a dumbass." Like, you, the witch is just like, "You dumb bitch. This is how you do it. This is how you get in." What a dork. And she crept up and thrust her head into the oven. Then Gretel gave her a push and that drove her far into it, and shut the iron door behind her, and fastened the bolt. Oh, then she began to howl quite horribly, but Gretel ran away, and the Skydaddyless witch was miserably burnt to death. Nice, I guess. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, thank you so much for the raid. Hello. I'm reading Grimm's fairy tales. We're reading Hansel and Gretel. Thank you so much. Holy crap. I'm thank you so much. Hi, I'm Lil Len. I'm a VTuber. I'm reading books right now, but I usually play video games. I play lots of video games. I play Yakuza. That's what I'm playing right now. I had finished Potionomics a little while beforehand. Um, Thank you so much. I'm I completely understand if you gotta raid and leave, but yeah, we're just finishing the Hansel and Gretel story, and then we're going to be reading the Three Snake Leaves. Thank you all so much for if you hang out, or if not, it's fine. Uh, Thank you again. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, this is an amazing model, you know. I can chat with you guys for just a little bit before I finish up Hansel and Gretel. Uh, but yeah, thank you so much. I'm gonna have to check you out, Echo Rin. You look super cute. I'm gonna follow you. Uh, but yeah, so I'm going. This is usually my like really chill day, so I'm super surprised to get a raid. But thank you again so much. Alrighty, now we're gonna finish up Hansel and Gretel. They just cooked the witch. Who honestly, the witch was kind of stupid a little bit. Like when the witch was a little bit dumb. It was very silly. Gretel, however, ran like lightning to Hansel, opened his little stable, and cried, "Hansel, we're saved! The old witch is dead. I mean, she's in the process of dying, kinda." Let's see. Then Hansel sprang out like a bird from its cage. When the door is opened for it, how they did rejoice and embrace each other, and dance about and kiss each other. And as they had no longer any need to fear her, they went into the witch's house, and in every corner there stood chests full of pearls and jewels. "These are far better than pebbles," said Hansel, and thrust into his pockets whatever could be got in. And Gretel said, "I too will take something home with me," and filled her pinafore full. "But now we will go away," said Hansel, "that we may get out of the witch's forest." When they had walked for 2 hours, they came to a great piece of water. "We cannot get over," said Hansel. "I see no foot plank and no bridge." "And no boat crosses either," answered Gretel. "But a white duck is swimming there. If I ask her, she will help us over." Then she cried, little duck, dost thou see? Hansel and Gretel are waiting for thee. There's never a plank or bridge in sight. Take us across on thy back so white." Weird. Imagine asking a duck for assistance. It's like, "Hey, ducky, can you come help us get across the river, please? Pretty please." The duck came to them, and Hansel seated himself on its back, and told his sister to sit by him. "No," replied Gretel, "that will be too heavy for this little duck. She shall take us across, one after the other." Okay. The good little duck did so, and when they were once safely across and had walked for a short time, the forest seemed to be more and more familiar to them, and had at length they and at ugh, I can't talk. And at length they saw from afar their father's house. Then they began to run, rushed into the parlor, and threw themselves into their father's arms. The man had not known one happy hour since he had left the children in the forest. The woman, however, was dead, apparently. She died off screen, it's fine. She, she, she died. We don't know how or why or what happened, but it's fine. Gretel emptied her pinafore until pearls and precious stones ran about the room, and Hansel threw one handful after another out of his pocket to add to them. Then all anxiety was at an end, and they lived together in perfect happiness. My tale is done. There runs a mouse. Whosoever catches it may take himself a big fur cap out of may make himself a big fur cap out of it. What? What is happening? That last sentence is so confusing. Okay. My tale's done. If you find that fucking rat, you can make a hat out of it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, I guess. Next up is The Three Snake Leaves, which strange, very strange, but it's okay. There was once upon a time a poor man. Thank you so much, everyone, for the follow, by the way. Thank you so much, Whale. Thank you so much. Just everyone. Let me see if I can. Oh. Whale, Echorin, Skiff, Thirst, not Thrust, Thirst. Sorry. 1 second. I'm trying to get everything to make a little bit more sense. Okay, there we go. Oh. Oh, it's broken. Everything is broken. It won't be fixed. Nothing wants to be fixed. Oh my goodness. This is such a pain. Whatever, it's fine. We're fine. Everything's fine. I don't need to actually see anything. What do I look like? Someone that needs to see? I'm trying to fix it really fast. Hey, Pendragon. How are you doing? Doing well, I hope you are. We're reading The Three Snake Leaves. We just finished Hansel and Gretel. Been kinda wild. There once was there was once upon a time a poor man who could no longer support his only son. Then said the son, "Dear father, things go so badly with us that I am a burden to you. I would rather go away and see how I can earn my bread." So the father gave him his blessing, and with great sorrow took leave of him. At this time the king of a mighty empire was at war, and the youth took service with him, and with him went out to fight. And when he came before the enemy, there was a battle. Wild, surprising, super crazy. Let's see. I got a great danger, and it rained shot until his comrades fell on all sides. And when the leader was also yeah, and when the leader also was killed, those left were about to take flight. But the youth stepped forth, spoke boldly, and told them, and cried, no, spoke boldly to them, and cried, "We will not let our fatherland be ruined." Then the others followed him, and he pressed on and conquered the enemy. When the king heard that he owed the victory to him alone, he raised him above all the others, gave him great treasures, and made him the first in the kingdom. I don't know exactly what that means, but you know what? It's a cool reward. The king had a daughter who was very beautiful, but she was also very strange. She had made a vow to take no one as her lord and husband who did not promise to let himself be buried alive with her if she died first. "If he loves me with all his heart," said she, "of what use will life be to him afterwards?" Strange. On her side, she would do the same, and if he died first, would go down to the grave with him. She would go down to the grave with him, yeah. This strange oath had up to this time frightened away all wooers, but the youth became so charmed with her beauty that he cared for nothing, but asked her father for her. "But dost thou know what thou must promise?" said the king. "I must be buried with her," he replied, "if I outlive her, but my love is so great that I do not mind the danger." Brave man, very brave man. Then the king consented, and the wedding was solemnized with great splendor. They lived now for a while happy and contented with each other, and then it befell that the young queen was attacked by a severe illness, and no physician could save her. And as she lay there dead, the young king remembered what he had been obliged to promise, and was horrified at having to lie down alive in the grave. But there was no escape. The king had placed sentries at all the gates, and it was not possible to avoid his fate. As the day came when the corpse was to be buried, he was taken down into the royal vault with it, and then the door was shut and bolted. Near the coffin stood a table, on which were 4 candles, 4 loaves of bread, and 4 bottles of wine. When this provision came to an end, he would have to die of hunger. And now he sat there full of pain and grief, ate every day only a little piece of bread, drank only a mouthful of wine, and nevertheless saw death daily drawing nearer. Whilst he thus gazed before him, he saw a snake creep out of a corner of the vault and approach the dead body. And as he thought it came to gnaw at it, he drew his sword again and said, no, he drew his sword, not again, and said, As long as I live, thou shalt not touch her." He hewed the snake in 3 pieces. After a time, a second snake crept out of the hole, and when it saw the other lying dead and cut in pieces, it fucking left. It got the hell out of there. It went back, but soon came again with 3 green leaves in its mouth. Then it took the 3 pieces of the snake, laid them together as they ought to go, and placed one of the leaves on each wound. Immediately the severed parts joined themselves together, the snake moved and became alive again, and both of them hastened away together. The leaves were left lying on the ground, and a desire came into the mind of the unhappy man, who had been watching all this, to know if the wondrous power of the leaves, which had brought the snake to life again, could not likewise be of service to a human being. So he picked up the leaves and laid one of them on the mouth of his dead wife, and the 2 others on her eyes. And hardly had he done this than the blood stirred in her veins, rose into her pale face, and colored it again. Then she drew breath, opened her eyes, and said, "Ah, where am I?" "Thou art with me, dear wife," he answered, and told her how everything had happened, and how he had brought her back again to life. Then he gave her some wine and bread, and when she had regained her strength, he raised her up, and they went to the door and knocked, and called so loudly that the sentries heard it, and told the king. The king came down himself and opened the door, and there he found both strong and well, and rejoiced with them that now all sorrow was over. The young king, however, took the 3 snake leaves with him, gave them to a servant, and said, "Keep them for me carefully, and carry them constantly about thee. Who knows in what trouble they may yet be of service to us?" A change had, however, taken place in his wife. After she had been restored to life, it seemed as if all love for her husband had gone out of her heart. After some time, when he wanted to make a voyage over the sea, to visit his old father, they had gone on board a ship. She forgot the great love and fidelity which he had shown her, and which had been the means of rescuing her from death, and conceived a wicked inclination for the skipper. That's gross. And once, when the young king lay there asleep, she called in the skipper, and seized the sleeper by the head. And the skipper took him by the feet, and thus they threw him down into the sea. When the shameful deed was done, she said, "Now let us return home, and say that he died on the way. I will extol and praise thee so to my father, that he will marry me to thee, and make thee the heir to his crown." Absolutely no, he will not. Do you remember the promise? Promise went both ways. Whoopsies. Also, thank you, Sir Knight Natsu, for the follow as well. Oh boy. But the faithful servant, who had seen all that they did, unseen by them, unfastened a little boat from the ship, got into it, sailed after his master, and let the traitors go on their way. He fished up the dead body, and by the help of the 3 snake leaves, which he carried about with him, and laid on the eyes and mouth, he fortunately brought the young king back to life. They both rowed with all their strength day and night, and their little boat flew so swiftly that they reached the old king before the others did. He was astonished when he saw them come alone, and asked what had happened to them. When he learnt the wickedness of his daughter, he said, "I cannot believe that she behaved so ill, but the truth will soon come to light," and bade them both go into a secret chamber and keep themselves hidden from everyone. Soon afterwards the great ship came sailing in, and the horrible woman appeared before her father with a troubled countenance. He said, "Why dost thou come back alone? Where is thy husband?" "Ah, dear father," she replied, "I come home again in great grief. During the voyage my husband became suddenly ill and died, and if the good skipper had not given me his help, it would have gone ill with me. Ugh. He was present at his death, and can tell you all. The king said, I will make the dead alive again, and opened the chamber, and bade the two come out. When the woman saw her husband, she was thunderstruck, and fell on her knees and begged for mercy. The king said, There is no mercy. He was ready to die with thee, and restore thee to life again, but thou hast murdered him in his sleep, and shalt receive the reward that thou deservest. Then she was placed with her accomplice in a ship that had been pierced with holes, and sent out to sea, where they soon sank amidst the waves. Again, these stories are so funny. These stories are so funny. It's just, it's always like the last sentence or two where all the comeuppance happens, and then it's just so quick. It's so quick and just snappy. Goodness gracious. This next one is also snake related. This one is called The White Snake. And I'm going to very quickly take a sippy of my water. Well, not my water, my tea. Tea is water, right? That technically counts. Technically. Yeah. Ad break. Hoo-ha-ha. That was wild, though. The fact that the fact that these stories always just end so abruptly. They just fast forward the last like couple of sentences so much. It's absolutely wild to me. Absolutely wild. But yeah, I think that one was one of my favorites just because they were clever. They did clever things. They made the lady. They made her do naughty things. It would have been really, I feel like it would have been a little bit funnier if he just didn't tell her that the guy was alive. I think it would have been even funnier if the king was just like, well, you have to uphold your end of the bargain. You have to uphold your end of it. Like, you made a promise, so you gotta keep it. And then, like, the other guy just got to fucking live happily ever after. It would have been really funny. Like, if it, like, if he didn't even do the big reveal of, like, waha, of aha. Welcome back, everyone, from the ad break. I'm really fast going to start reading The White Snake. A long time ago, there lived a king who was famed for his wisdom through all the land. Nothing was hidden from him, and it seemed as if news of the most secret things was brought to him through the air. But he had a strange custom. Every day after dinner, when the table was cleared and no one else was present, a trusty servant had to bring him one more dish. It was covered, however, and even the servant did not know what was in it. Neither did anyone know. Neither did anyone know. No one knew. For the king never took off the cover to eat of it until he was quite alone. This had gone on for a long time, when one day the servant who took away the dish was overcome with such curiosity that he could not help carrying the dish into his room. When he had carefully locked the door, he lifted up the cover and saw a white snake lying on the dish. But when he saw it, he could not deny himself the pleasure of tasting it, so he cut off a little bit and put it into his mouth. No sooner had it touched his tongue than he heard a strange whispering of little voices outside his window. He went and listened, and then noticed that it was the sparrows were chattering together and telling one another of all kinds of things which they had seen in the fields and woods. Eating the snake had given him power of understanding the language of animals. Now it so happened that on this very day the queen lost her most beautiful ring, and suspicion of having stolen it fell upon this trusty servant, who was allowed to go everywhere. The king ordered the man to be brought before him, and threatened with angry words that unless he could before the morrow point out the thief, he himself should be looked upon as guilty and executed. Imagine stealing a ring and getting executed for it. Absolutely wild. In vain he declared his innocence. He was dismissed with no better answer. In his trouble and fear he went down into the courtyard and took thought how to help himself out of his trouble. Now some ducks were sitting together quietly by a brook and taking their rest, and whilst they were making their feathers smooth with their bills, they were having a confidential conversation together. The servants stood by and listened. They were telling one another of all the places where they had been waddling about all the morning, and what good food they had found. And one said in a pitiful tone, "Something lies heavy on my stomach. As I was eating in haste, I swallowed a ring which lay under the queen's window." The servant at once seized her in his hand, no, seized her by the neck, carried her to the kitchen, and said to the cook, "Here is a fine duck. Pray kill her." "Yes," said the cook, and weighed her in his hand. She has spared no trouble to fatten herself, and has been waiting to be roasted long enough." So he cut off her head. Jesus. And as she was being dressed for the spit, the queen's ring was found inside her. The servant could now easily prove his innocence, and the king, to make amends for the wrong, allowed him to ask a favor, and promised him the best place in the court that he could wish for. The servant refused everything, and only asked for a horse and some money for traveling, as he had a mind to see the world and go about a little. When his request was granted, he set out on his way, and one day came to a pond, where he saw 3 fishes caught in the reeds and gasping for water. Now, though, it is said that fishes are dumb. Okay. Okay, roasting fishes, I guess. Just really going on the insulting fish train today. Weirdly, okay. Sorry, I really got caught off guard by that. Just fishes are dumb. Fishes, dumb little bitches. He heard them lamenting that they must perish so miserably. And as he had a kind heart, he got off his horse and put the 3 prisoners back into the water. They quivered with delight, put out their heads, and cried to him, "We will remember you and repay you for saving us." He rode on. After a while, it seemed to him that he heard a voice in the sand at his feet. He listened and heard an ant king complain, "Why cannot folks with their clumsy beasts keep off our bodies? That stupid horse with his heavy hoofs has been treading down my people without mercy." So he turned on to a side path, and the ant king cried out to him, "We will remember you. One good turn deserves another." What are ants gonna do? How the fuck are ants going to pay him back? Anyway, I guess it'll be fine. They'll figure it out. The path led him into a wood, and here he saw 2 old ravens standing by their nest, and throwing out their young ones. "Out with you, you idle good-for-nothing creatures," cried they. "We cannot find food for you any longer. You are big enough, and can provide for yourselves." But the poor young ravens lay upon the ground, flapping their wings and crying, "Oh, what helpless chicks we are!" We must shift ourselves, and yet we cannot fly. And we must shift for ourselves? What does that mean? Anyway, um, what can we do but lie here and starve? So the good young fellow alighted and killed his horse with his sword and gave it to them for food. That is way too much food for just a few little chicks. That's too much food. That's way too much. Then they came hopping up to it, satisfied their hunger, and cried, "We will remember you. One good turn deserves another." And now he had to use his own legs because he killed his fucking horse. His death. I can't stand how dumb this man is. Anyway, and when he had walked a long way, he came to a large city. There was a great noise and crowd in the streets, and a man rode up on horseback, crying loud, "The king's daughter wants a husband, but whoever sues for her hand must perform a hard task, and if he does not succeed, he will forfeit his life." That's very steep, very steep cost for a wifey. Many had already made the attempt, but in vain. Nevertheless, when the youth saw the king's daughter, he was so overcome by her great beauty that he forgot all danger, went before the king, and declared himself a suitor. So he was led out to the sea, and a gold ring was thrown into it, in his sight. Then the king ordered him to fetch this ring up from the bottom of the sea, and added, "If you come up again without it, you will be thrown in again and again until you perish amid the waves." Okay, but those were freshwater fish that he was talking to. They were in a lake. Freshwater fish would die in the ocean, like, immediately. Anyway, but that's just whatever. All the people grieved for the handsome youth, and then they went away, leaving him alone by the sea. He stood on the shore and considered what he should do, when suddenly he saw three fishes come swimming towards him, and they were the very fishes whose lives he had saved. The one in the middle held a mussel in its mouth, which it laid on the shore at the youth's feet, and when he had taken it up and opened it, there lay the gold ring in the shell. Full of joy, he took it to the king, and expected that he would grant him the promised reward, meaning a woman. These stories are weird. But when the proud princess perceived that he was not her equal in birth, she scorned him, and required him first to perform another task. She went down into the garden and strewed with her own hands 10 sacks full of millet seed on the grass. Then she said, "Tomorrow morning, before sunrise, these must be picked up, and not a single grain must be wanting." Okay, so this is where the ants are going to come in. Cool. The youth sat down in the garden and considered how it might be possible to perform this task. How did the ants get here? That's my question, is how did they go from whatever town he went to here? Are they following him now? Are all of his animal friends just following him because he helped them out? I don't know. Who knows? Well, whatever. It's fine. But he could think of nothing, and there he sat sorrowfully awaiting the break of day, when he should be led to death. But as soon as the first rays of the sun shone into the garden, he saw all the 10 sacks standing side by side, quite full, and not a single grain was missing. The ant king had come in the night with thousands and thousands of ants, and the grateful creatures had by great industry picked up all the millet seed and gathered them into the sacks. That's great. Good for him. Presently the king's daughter herself came down into the garden, and was amazed to see that the young man had done the task she had given him. But she could not yet conquer her proud heart, and said, Although he has performed both the tasks, he shall not be my husband until he has brought me an apple from the tree of life. Where the fuck is the tree of life? Does she know where the tree of life is? Or is this just her one? I mean, obviously it's just her wanting him to get killed, but like, does she know where the tree of life is? Like, there has to be rumors about it, right? For her to be like, give me that tree. I don't know. The youth did not know where the tree of life stood, but he set out and would have gone on forever, as long as his legs would carry him, though he had no hope of finding it. After he had wandered through 3 kingdoms, he came one evening to a wood and lay down under a tree to sleep. But he heard a rustling in the branches, and a golden apple fell into his hand. Oh no, I'm getting flashbacks to Hades too, when I found out that the nectar of the gods is just apple juice. I'm upset. At the same time, 3 ravens flew down to him, perched themselves upon his knee, and said, "We are the 3 young ravens whom you saved from starving when we had grown big, and heard and heard that you were seeking the golden apple. We flew over the sea to the end of the world, where the tree of life stands, and have brought you the apple." The youth, full of joy, set out homewards and took the golden apple to the king's beautiful daughter, who had no more excuses left to make. They cut the apple of life into 2 and ate it together, and then her heart became full of love for him, and they lived in undisturbed happiness to a great age. Okay. Well, I mean, at least she loved him, I guess. At least she ended up loving him. So that's good, I guess. I drink all my tea. But we will continue. Sorry, big stretch. The next story is The Straw, the Coal, and the Bean. Oh, thank you for the care package. I should probably get something to drink. Okay, I'll be right back. I'll go get something to drink. It's not going to be tea because I don't have an electric kettle and it would take forever to make some tea. So I'll be right back with water. All right, I return with water. That one was a weird story. Oh, well, what's this? Oh, it's still me. Oh no, in like 15 minutes I'm gonna have to switch it back to Book Mommy. Oh no, Lysanderish, what have you done? What have you done? That was fucking wild though. The straw, the coal, and the bean. What bean? What bean? In a village dwelt a poor old woman who had gathered together a dish of beans and wanted to cook them. Very fair, very fair. So she made a fire on her hearth and what it and sorry, I got really distracted. Just a plate of beans. I don't think that's how you cook beans, by the way. I don't think you just put them on a plate. Just as a random aside. And that it might burn the quicker, she lighted it with a handful of straw. When she was emptying the beans into the pan, okay, she's putting it in a pan at least. One dropped without her observing it, and lay on the ground beside the straw, and soon afterwards a burning coal from the fire leapt down to the two. Then the straw began and said, "Dear friends, from whence do you come here? Excuse you. Wait, wait, when did this become the fucking inanimate object show?" Okay. The coal replied, "I fortunately sprang out of the fire, and if I had not escaped by main force, my death would have been certain. I should have been burnt to ashes." The bean said, "I too have escaped with a whole skin, but if the old woman had got me into the pan, I should have been made into broth without any mercy, like my comrades, my my bean comrades in arms." Okay. "And would a better fate have fallen to my lot?" said the straw. "The old woman has destroyed all my brethren in fire and smoke. She seized 60 of them at once and took their lives. I luckily slipped through her fingers. What the fuck is happening?" What is happening right now? "But what are we to do now?" said the coal. "I think," answered the bean, "that we have so fortunately escaped death, we should keep together like old companions, and lest a new mischance should overtake us here, we should go away together and repair to a foreign country." I'm sorry. I keep getting distracted in this story. This is even weirder than Babe Pig in the City. This is a piece of straw, a bean, and a piece of coal that are gonna all run away to another country and make a new life together, I guess. They do the same shit to beans and coals and straw in other countries, you know? Like, okay, whatever, it's fine. The proposition pleased the two others, and they set out on their way in company. Soon, however, they came to a little brook, and as there was no bridge or foot-plank, they did not know how they were to get over it. The straw hit on a good idea, and said, "I will lay myself straight across, and then you can walk over on me as on a bridge." Okay. The straw, therefore, stretched itself from one bank to... That's a big piece of straw. That's a big piece of straw. I mean, it's a small little brook, but that's still pretty big. And the coal, who was of an impetuous disposition, tripped quite boldly onto the newly built bridge. But when she had reached the middle, and heard the water rushing beneath her, she was, after all, afraid, and stood still, and ventured no farther. The straw, however, began to burn, and broke in two pieces, and fell into the stream. The coal slipped after her, hissed when she got into the water, and breathed her last. The bean, who had prudently stayed behind on the shore, could not but laugh at the event, was unable to stop, and laughed so heartily that she burst. It would have been all over with her, likewise, if, by good fortune, a tailor, who was travelling in search of work, had not sat down to rest by the brook. As he had a compassionate heart, he pulled out his needle and thread, and sewed her together. The bean thanked him most prettily, but as the tailor used black thread, all beans since then have a black seam. Okay. What a fucking strange journey that was. I would say that it's the most confusing story I've read so far. Okay. Cool. Um, the next story is The Fisherman and His Wife. Hopefully this one will be a little bit less fucking confusing. I, I'm still astonished by that last one. Okay, anyway. There was once upon a time a fisherman who lived with his wife in a miserable hovel close by the sea. Great start to a story. And every day he went out fishing. And once, as he was sitting with his rod, looking at the clear water, his line suddenly went down, far down below. And when he drew it up again, he brought out a large flounder. And the flounder said to him, "Hark, you fisherman, I pray you let me live. I am no flounder really, but an enchanted princess. What good will it do you to kill me? I should not be good to eat. Put me in the water again and let me go." "Come," said the fisherman, "there's no need for so many words about it. A fish that can talk, I should certainly let go anyhow. You know what? That also very fair. Like, oh, it's a fish that can talk. I'm gonna put you back. I don't wanna have that moral dilemma." With that, he put him back again into the clear water, and the flounder went to the bottom, leaving a long streak of blood behind him. Then the fisherman got up and went home to his wife in the hovel. "Husband," said the woman, "you caught nothing today?" "No," said the man, "I did catch a flounder who said he was an enchanted prince." Wait, prince or princess? Oh, an enchanted prince. Herp derp derp derp. I'm dumb. It was a prince, not a princess. I was a little confused. Why would a princess ever be a fish? She has to be a duck or a swan. Anyway, so I let him go again. "Did you not wish for anything first?" said the woman. "No," said the man. "What should I wish for?" "Ah," said the woman, "it is surely hard to live always in this dirty hovel. You might have wished for a small cottage for us. Go back and call him. Tell him we want to have a small cottage. He will certainly give us that." "Ah," said the man, "why should I go there again?" "Why?" said the woman. You did catch him, and you let him go again. He is sure to do it. Go at once. He's gonna piss off the fish. He's gonna anger the weird fish dude." The man still did not quite like to go, but did not like to oppose his wife, and went to the sea. When he got there, the sea was all green and yellow, and no longer so smooth. He stood still and said, "Flounder, flounder in the sea, come, I pray thee, here to me, for my wife, good Ilsebil, wills not as I'd have her will." Then the flounder came swimming to him and said, "Well, what does she want then?" "Ah," said the man, "I did catch you, and my wife says I really ought to have wished for something. She does not like to live in a wretched hovel any longer. She would like to have a cottage." "Go then," said the flounder, "she has it already." When the man went home, his wife was no longer in the hovel, but instead of it there stood a small cottage, and she was sitting on a bench before the door. Then she took him by the hand and said to him, "Just come inside, look, now isn't this a great deal better?" So they went in, and there was a small porch, and a pretty little parlor, and a bedroom, and a kitchen and pantry, with the best of furniture, and fitted up with the most beautiful things made of tin and brass, whatsoever was wanted. And behind the cottage there was a small yard, with hens and ducks, and a little garden with flowers and fruit. "Look," said the wife, wait, look, is not that nice?" Is not that nice? Oh, she's saying it is nice. Fucking confusing words. "Yes," said the husband, "and so we must always think it. Now we will live quite contented." "We will think about that," said the wife. With that they ate something and went to bed. Everything went well for a week or a fortnight, And then the woman said, hark you, husband, this cottage is far too small for us, and the garden and yard are little. The flounder might just as well have given us a larger house. I should like to live in a great stone castle. Go to the flounder and tell him to give us a castle. Ah, wife, said the man, the cottage is quite good enough. Why should we live in a castle? Bro, seriously. If I was the wife, I'd be so fucking happy. I'd be like, bro, I got a cute little castle. I mean, not a cute, I got a cute little cottage. I'm happy as fuck. I got a little garden with little animals and stuff. Cute as hell. Love it. What? Said the woman. Just go there. The flounder can always do that. No, wife, said the man. The flounder has just given us a cottage. I do not like to go back so soon. It might make him angry. Exactly. Oh, said the woman, he can do it quite easily, and will be glad to do it. Just you go to him. Oh boy. The man's heart grew heavy, and he would not go. He said to himself, it is not right. And yet he went. And when he came to the sea, the water was quite purple and dark blue, and gray and thick, and no longer so green and yellow. But it was still quiet, and he stood there and said, Flounder, flounder in the sea, come I pray thee here to me, for my wife good Ilsebil wills not as I'd have her will. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy. I really hope the lesson isn't like, oh, you should ask for more. Awful. Yeah. And we're in another ad break. So I'm going to chill for a little bit, do a little stretch. Ugh. Mm. Uh, I still don't know if it's better to do pre-rolls or have planned ads in the fucking thing. I don't know. I don't know. Oof. I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna have to have a discussion with someone about it at some point in time. Just, get someone to give me input on it. That would be rad. That'd be super rad. I'm super happy that Echorin was super rad and nice and sorry, nose itchy. Nose big itchy. Gave me a nice little raid. That was super cool. She's so fucking cute. Her model is so cute. I love it. I love it so much. You better watch out. Oh no. Lysander-ish. Hush. Hush. Okay. And we're back. Thank you so. Oh no. You. Now I have to go back to my outfit. There we go. You little butthead. Thank you for the head pats. Okay, so he called back the flounder because his bitch wife is, demanding more. Well, what does she want then? Said the flounder. Alas, said the man, half scared. She wants to live in a great stone castle. I like how even the guy is kind of annoyed. He's like, why? He's like, I don't know why she keeps demanding more. She wants to live in a great stone castle. Go to it then. She is standing before the door, said the flounder. Then the man went away, intending to go home. But when he got there, he found a great stone palace, and his wife was just standing on the steps going in. And she took him by the hand and said, Come in. So he went in with her, and in the castle was a great hall paved with marble, and many servants, who flung wide the doors, and the walls were all bright with beautiful hangings, and in the rooms were chairs and tables of pure gold, and crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. And all the rooms and bedrooms had carpets, and food and wine of the very best were standing on all the tables, so that they nearly broke down beneath it. Behind the house, too, there was a great courtyard, with stables for horses and cows, and the very best of the carriages. There was a magnificent large garden, too. Sorry, Ghost decided to climb on stuff. There was a magnificent large garden, too, with the most beautiful flowers and fruit trees, and a park quite half a mile long, in which there were stags, deers, and hares, and everything that could be desired. Said the woman, isn't that beautiful? Yes, indeed, said the man. Now let it be, and we will live in this beautiful castle and be content. We will consider about that, said the woman, and sleep upon it. Oh my God, she's going to ask for more. Oh. Thereupon they went to bed. Next morning the wife awoke first, and it was just daybreak, and from her bed she saw the beautiful country lying before her. Her husband was still stretching himself, so she poked him in the side with her elbow and said, get up, husband, and just peep out the window, look. Peep out the window. Look you, couldn't we be the king over all that land? Go to the flounder, we will be the king. Ah, wife, said the man, why should we be king? I do not want to be king. This poor guy. Well, said the wife, if you won't be king, I will. Go to the flounder, for I will be king. Oh boy. Oh, wife, said the man, why do you want to be king? I do not like to say that to him. Why not? Said the woman. Go to him this instant. I must be king. So the man went, and was quite unhappy because his wife wished to be the king. It's a very weird wish. Is it raining? I think it's raining. I think Ghost is freaking out because it's raining right now. Let's see. Sorry. Uh, it is not right. It is not right, thought he. He did not wish to go, but yet he went. And when he came to the sea, it was quite dark gray, and the water heaved up from below and smelt putrid. Then he went and stood by it and said, Flounder, flounder in the sea, come, I pray thee, here to me, for my wife, good Ilsebil, wills not as I'd have her will. Well, what does she want then? Said the flounder. Alas, said the man, she wants to be king. Go to her, she is king already. What the fuck is going on? So the man went, and when he came to the palace, the castle had become much larger, and had a great tower and magnificent ornaments, and a sentinel was standing before the door, and there were numbers of soldiers with kettle drums and trumpets. And when he went inside the house, everything was of real marble and gold, with velvet covers, and great golden tassels. Then the doors of the hall were opened, and there was the court in all its splendor, and his wife was sitting on a high throne of gold and diamonds, with a great crown of gold on her head, and a scepter of pure gold and jewels in her hand. And on both sides of her stood her maids in waiting in a row, each of them always one head shorter than the last. Then he went and stood before her and said, Ah, wife, and now you are king. Yes, said the woman, now I am king. So he stood and looked at her, and when he had looked at her thus for some time, he said, And now that you are king, let all else be, now we will wish for nothing more. Nay, husband, said the woman, quite anxiously, I find time pass very heavily. I can bear it no longer. Go to the flower. I am king, but I must be emperor too. Alas, wife, why do you wish to be emperor? This guy's so tired. He's so exhausted. He's just like, wife, please. Stop making me ask for more stuff from this fish. Husband, said she, go to the flounder. I will be emperor. Alas, wife, said the man, he cannot make you emperor. I may not say that to the fish. There's only one emperor in the land. An emperor the flounder cannot make you. I assure you he cannot. What, said the woman, I am the king, and you are nothing but my husband. Will you go this moment? Go at once. If he can make me a king, he can make me an emperor. I will be emperor. Go instantly. So he was forced to go. As the man went, however, he was troubled in mind, and thought to himself, it will not end well, it will not end well. Emperor is too shameless. The flounder will at last be tired out. With that he reached the sea, and the sea was quite black and thick, and began to boil up from below, so that it threw up bubbles, and such a sharp wind blew over it that it curdled, and the man was afraid. Then he went and stood by it, and said, Flounder, flounder in the sea, come, I pray thee, here to me, for my good wife Ilsebel wills not as I'd have her will. Well, what does she want then? Said the flounder. Alas, flounder, said he, my wife wants to be emperor. Hi, Ash, thank you so much for the head pats. This is a fucking wild story we're on. The fisherman and his wife is crazy. My wife wants to be emperor. Go to her, said the flounder. She is emperor already. Holy Jesus. So the man went, and when he got there, the whole palace was made of polished marble, with alabaster figures and golden ornaments, and soldiers were marching before the door blowing trumpets, and beating cymbals and drums, and in the house barons and counts and dukes were going about as servants. Then they opened the doors to him, which were of pure gold, and when he entered, there sat his wife on a throne, which was made of one piece of gold, and was quite 2 miles high. Jesus. And she wore a great golden crown that was 3 yards high, and set with diamonds and carbuncles, and in one hand she had the scepter, and in the other the imperial orb, and on both sides of her stood the yeomen of the guard in 2 rows, each being smaller than the one before him, from the biggest giant, who was 2 miles high, to the very smallest dwarf, just as big as my little finger. And before it stood a number of princes and dukes. Oh boy. Then the man went and stood among them and said, Wife, are you emperor now? Yes, said she, now I am emperor. Then he stood and looked at her well, and when he had looked at her thus for some time, he said, Ah, wife, be content, now that you are emperor. Husband, said she, why are you standing there? Now I am emperor, but I will be pope too. Go to the flounder. Jesus fucking Christ, this woman. Okay. Alas, wife, said the man, what will you not wish for? You cannot be pope. There is but one in Christendom. He cannot make you pope. Husband, said she, I will be pope. Go immediately. I must be pope this very day. No, wife, said the man. I do not like to say that to him. That would not do. It is too much. The flounder can't make you pope. It's ridiculous. Thank you for the head pats. This story is fucking crazy. Like there's been a lot of crazy ones. The last one was crazy, but this one is like this woman is a lot. It's "Husband," said she, "what nonsense! If he can make an emperor, he can make a pope. Go to him directly. I am emperor, and you are nothing but my husband. Will you go at once?" Then he was afraid and went, but he was quite faint, and shivered and shook, and his knees and legs trembled, and a high wind blew over the land, and the clouds flew, and towards evening all grew dark, and the leaves fell from the trees, and the water rose and roared, as if it were boiling, and splashed upon the shore, and in the distance he saw ships which were firing guns in their sore need, pitching and tossing on the waves. And yet in the midst of the sky there was still a small bit of blue, though on every side it was as red as in a heavy storm. Full of despair, he went and stood in much fear, and said, "Flounder, flounder in the sea, come I pray thee here to me, for my wife good Ilsebil wills not as I'd have her will." I like how this is like very clearly like I don't know if it's I think it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for like the rich and powerful getting really rich, but at the cost of literally everyone else. Because like very obviously all of the land is completely fucked and everyone is in turmoil except for the wife, who is just in this like gilded castle. Anyway, "Well, what does she want then?" said the flounder. "Alas," said the man, "she wants to be pope." "Go to her then," said the flounder, "she is pope already." So he went, and when he got there he saw what seemed to be a large church, surrounded by palaces. He pushed his way through the crowd. Inside, however, everything was lighted up with thousands and thousands of candles, and his wife was clad in gold, and she was sitting on a much higher throne, and had three great golden crowns on, and round about her there was much oh my god, ecclesiastical splendor? I think it's ecclesiastical. And on both sides of her was a row of candles, the largest of which was as tall as the very tallest tower, down to the very smallest kitchen candle. And all the emperors and kings were on their knees before her, kissing her shoe. "Wife," said the man, and looked attentively at her, "are you now Pope?" "Yes," said she, "I am Pope." So he stood and looked at her, and it was just as if he was looking at the bright sun. When he had stood looking at her thus for a short time, he said, "How, wife, if you are Pope, do let well alone. Like, please stop." But she looked as stiff as a post, and did not move or show any signs of life. Then said he, "Wife, now that you are Pope, be satisfied. You cannot become anything greater now." "I will consider about that," said the woman. Thereupon they both went to bed, but she was not satisfied, and greediness let her have no sleep, for she was continually thinking what there was left for her to be. A god? The man slept well and soundly, for he had run about a great deal during the day, but the woman could not fall asleep at all, and flung herself from one side to the other the whole night through, thinking always what more was left for her to be, but unable to call to mind anything else. At length the sun began to rise, and when the woman saw the red of dawn, she sat up in bed and looked at it, and when through the window she saw the sun thus rising, she said, Cannot I, too, order the sun and moon to rise? Jesus fucking Christ, woman!" And when the woman saw the red... Oh, no. "Husband," she said, poking him in the ribs with her elbows, "wake up, go to the flounder, for I wish to be even as God is." The man was still half asleep, but he was so horrified that he fell out of bed. He thought he must have heard amiss, and rubbed his eyes. "Alas, wife, what are you saying?" "Husband," said she, "if I can't order the sun and moon to rise, and have to look on and see the sun and moon rising, I can't bear it. I shall not know what it is to have another happy hour, unless I can make them rise myself." Then she looked at him so terribly that a shudder ran over him, and said, "Go at once. I wish to be like unto Skydaddy." "Alas, wife," said the man, falling on his knees before her, "the flounder cannot do that. He can make an emperor and a pope. I beseech you, go on as you are, and be pope." Then she fell into a rage, and her hair flew wildly about her head, and she cried, "I will not endure this. I will not bear it any longer. Wilt thou go?" Then he put on his trousers and ran away like a madman. But outside a great storm was raging, and blowing so hard that he could scarcely keep his feet. Houses and trees toppled over, the mountains trembled, rocks rolled into the sea, the sky was pitch black, and it thundered and lightened, and the sea came in with black waves as high as church towers and mountains, and all with crests of white foam at the top. Then he cried, but could not hear his own words, "Flounder, flounder in the sea, come I pray thee here to me, for my wife good Ilsebil wills not as I'd have her will." "Well, what does she want?" said the flounder. "Alas," said he, "she wants to be like unto Skydaddy. Go to her, and you will find her back again in the dirty hovel. And there they are living still at this very time." Huh? I don't understand that ending, but you know what? I'm glad that she ended up back in the hovel. I'm very glad that she ended up not being a god, I guess. I don't know, man. Okay. The next one is The Valiant Little Tailor. That one was a weird one. There's a lot of weird ones in this one. This one, I appreciate the lesson in that last one. It it's a all is nothing when compared. Oh, okay. You know what? That's fair. Hi, welcome in, Riley. Ryu. Is that who I think it is? Is that who I think it is? Let me check. Let me check. Let me check. How you doing? How's everyone doing? We're reading the Grimm's fairy tales. We just finished the fisherman and his wife. That shit got wild. I'm just glad it wasn't as weird as the bean, the straw, and the coal. Uh, the bean, the straw, and the coal was very strange. It was very odd indeed. Just what the heck? It explained why there's a little black seam on all beans in the weirdest way possible. The next one is The Valiant Little Tailor. Oh, thank you. I think you might have come in with the raid. The raid is rad. The raid was rad. Yeah, we're just doing my reading streams. On a Thursday, I'm gonna be back to playing Yakuza, and then on Saturday, I'm gonna play some random game and do silly things. Nice and cozy though today. Then on Thursday, it'll be a little bit more chaotic. One summer's morning, a little tailor was sitting on his table by the window. He was in good spirits and sewed with all his might. Then came a peasant woman down the street crying, "Good jams cheap, good jams cheap." This rang pleasantly in the tailor's ears. He stretched his delicate head out of the window, and called, "Come up here, dear woman. Here, you will get rid of your goods. Oh shit, they're booking your flight? That's awesome. Let me know what is it for that same day that they said before? Anyway, the woman came up the 3 steps to the tailor with her heavy basket, and he made her unpack the whole of the pots for him. He inspected all of them, lifted them up, put his nose to them, and at length said, "The jam seems to me to be good. So weigh me out 4 ounces, dear woman." Back to the land of the free. You're gonna be like, no, I miss the food. I miss the food. So weigh me out 4 ounces, dear woman, and if it is a quarter of a pound, that is of no consequence. The woman, who had hoped to find a good sale, gave him what he desired, but went away quite angry and grumbling. I wish I was able to try food from other countries. I wanted to try them. I wanted to taste them. "Now, Skidety, bless the jam to my use," cried the little tailor, "and give me health and strength." So he brought the bread out of the cupboard, cut himself a piece right across the loaf, and spread the jam over it. "This won't taste bitter," said he, "but I will just finish the jacket before I take a bite." He laid the bread near him, sewed on, and in his joy made bigger and bigger stitches. In the meantime the smell of the sweet jam ascended so to the wall, where the flies were sitting in great numbers. Why he got so many flies in his house? That they were attracted and descended on it in hosts. "Oh, who invited you?" said the little tailor, and drove the unbidden guests away. The flies, however, who understood no German, okay, speaking German, interesting, would not be turned away, but came back again in ever increasing companies. The little tailor at last lost all patience, and got a bit of cloth from the hole under his work table, and saying, "Wait, I will give it to you," struck it mercilessly on them. "Wait, and I will give it to you." Okay. When he drew it away and counted, there lay before him no fewer than 7, dead with legs stretched out. "Art thou a fellow of that sort?" said he, and could not help admiring his own bravery. "The whole town shall know of this." And the little tailor hastened to cut himself a girdle, stitched it, and embroidered on it large letters, 7 at one stroke. Okay. "What the town?" he continued, like a lamb's tail. The tailor put on the girdle, and resolved to go forth into the world, because he thought his workshop was too small for his valor. Because he killed 7 flies? Anyway, before he went away, he thought about the house. He sought about in the house to see if there was anything which he could take with him. However, he found nothing but an old cheese, and that he put in his pocket. In front of the door he observed a bird, which had caught itself in the thicket. I'm pretty sure you can't hear it. Yeah, you can't hear it. Because this is a reading stream, so I have it muted. Like I can see it. Yeah. It's a reading stream. Why would I have the audio on for silly shit? I can give you a refund for your points a little bit later. I can be smart sometimes. The bird caught itself in the thicket. It had to go into his pocket with the cheese? What? You're right. Why did he put the bird in his pocket? Wait, I'm confused. Okay, whatever. Now he took to the road boldly, and as he was light and nimble, he felt no fatigue. The road led him up a mountain, and when he had reached the highest point of it, there sat a powerful giant looking about him, quite comfortably. Interesting, very interesting. The little tailor went bravely up, spoke to him, and said, "Good day, comrade. So thou art sitting there overlooking the widespread world. I am just on my way thither, and want to try my luck. Hast thou any inclination to go with me?" The giant looked contemptuously at the tailor and said, "Thou ragamuffin! Thou miserable creature!" Wow, the giant does not like this man. If you put a bird in your pocket is going to want a kitten. Exactly. If you ask a giant to go on an adventure with you, he's gonna call you an asshole, basically. "Oh, indeed," answered the little tailor, and unbuttoned his coat, and showed the giant the girdle. "There mayst thou read what kind of man I am." Okay, cocky little shit. The giant read 7 at one stroke, and thought that they had been men whom the tailor had killed, and began to feel a little respect for the tiny fellow. Nevertheless, he wished to try him first, and took a stone in his hand and squeezed it together so that water dropped out of it. Holy fuck shit. I know that the saying is you can't make a stone bleed, but fuck. They didn't make it. Is stone blood water? Wait, is stone blood water? I'm gonna be talking about this for a little bit because we're in an ad, but like, is is stone blood water? He just squeezed the fuck out of that stone, by the way. Like he really fucking, he gave it a good old squeeze. Just a real big squeeze. Was, he's like, "Now you do it." It's like, oh. If I was the tailor, I'd be like, shit. Maybe the bird in his pocket will help him with it, I guess. I don't know. I don't know, man. A piece of straw made a bridge for a piece of coal, and the coal fell in and died, and the straw broke in half and died, and the bean laughed about that so hard that it exploded and died, and then a fucking tailor came by and sewed the bean together, and it was okay. And I don't know, it's not related to this story, but what anyway. Oh no, is he gonna squeeze the bird? Oh shit, I didn't even think about that. Because the bird might look like a stone. And then is it gonna be piss or blood? Is it gonna make the bird pee? Weird. Nevertheless, he wished to try him first, and took a stone in his hand, and squeezed it together so that the water dropped out of it. "Do that likewise," said the giant. Oh no, hiccups. I'm very scared for this bird. uh, "If thou hast strength, is that all?" said the tailor. "That is child's play with us." He put his hand into his pocket and brought out the soft cheese. Okay, he did the cheese, not the bird. And pressed it until the liquid ran out of it. Faith, said he, that was a little better, wasn't it? Why'd he squeeze the cheese? Also, didn't it say it was old cheese? Shouldn't old cheese not be that wet? No squeeze bird. He squeezed cheese. Squeeze the cheese. The giant did not know what to say, and could not believe it of the little man. Then the giant picked up a stone and threw it so high that the eye could scarcely follow it. Oh, now he's gonna yeet the bird. Old cheese would be suitably crumbly though. Yeah, but it has to be wet. He wanted water from it. He didn't want it to shatter, he just wanted water. I don't know. Anyway, he's gonna throw the bird's gonna fly away. The giant's gonna be impressed. Now, little mite of a man, do that likewise. Well thrown, said the tailor. But after all, the stone came down to earth again. I will throw you one which shall never come back at all. And, and he put his hand into his pocket, took out the bird, and threw it into the air. This is really just a commentary on how fucking stupid the giant is. The bird, delighted with its liberty, rose, flew away, and did not come back. Imagine if the bird had died, by the way. Imagine if he was like, oh man, I got you, and then he throws a dead bird, and then the bird just kind of flops on the ground. I know it's a little dark, but that'd be really funny. uh, the bird, delighted with its liberty, rose, flew away, and did not come back. How does that shot please you, comrade? Asked the tailor. Thou canst certainly throw, said the giant, but now we will see if thou art able to carry anything properly. He took the little tailor to a mighty oak tree. A mighty oak tree. Sorry, ghosts started being weird. Which lay there felled on the ground, and said, if thou art strong enough to help me carry the tree out of the forest. Okay, goodness gracious. Readily, answered the little man. Take thou the trunk on thy shoulders, and I will raise up the branches and twigs. After all, they are the heaviest. Liar. The giant took the trunk on his shoulder, but the tailor seated himself on a branch, and the giant, who could not look round, had to carry away the whole tree, and the little tailor in into the bargain. He behind was quite merry and happy, and whistled the song, Three tailors rode forth from the gate, as if carrying the tree were child's play. The giant, after he had dragged the heavy burden part of the way, could go no further, and cried, Hark you, I shall have to let the tree fall. The tailor sprang nimbly down, seized the tree with both arms as if he had been carrying it, and said to the giant, Thou art such a great fellow, and yet canst not even carry the tree. They went on together, and as they passed a cherry tree, the giant laid hold of the top of the tree where the ripest fruit was hanging, bent it down, gave it into the tailor's hand, and bade him eat. But the little tailor was much too weak to hold the tree, and when the giant let go, it sprang back again, and the tailor was tossed into the air with it. When he had fallen down again without injury, the giant said, What is this? Hast thou not strength enough to hold the weak twig? Oh boy. There was no lack of strength, answered the little tailor. Dost thou think that could be anything to a man who has struck down 7 at one blow? I leapt over the tree because the huntsmen are shooting down there in the thicket. Jump as I did, if thou canst do it. The giant made the attempt, but could not get over the tree, and remained hanging in the branches, so that in this also the tailor kept the upper hand. The giant said, If thou art such a valiant fellow, Come with me into our cavern and spend the night with us." The little tailor was willing and followed him. When they went into the cave, other giants were sitting there by the fire, and each of them had a roasted sheep in his hand and was eating it. The little tailor looked round and thought, "It is much more spacious here than in my workshop. Oh my! Oh boy." The giant showed him a bed and said he was to lie down in it and sleep. The bed, however, was too big for the little tailor. He did not lie down in it, but crept into a corner. When it was midnight, and the giant thought that the little tailor was lying in a sound sleep, he got up, took a great iron bar, cut through the bed in one blow, and thought he had given the grasshopper his finishing stroke. With the earliest dawn, the giants went into the forest and had quite forgotten the little tailor, when all at once he walked up to them quite merrily and boldly. The giants were terrified. They were afraid that he would strike them all dead, and ran away in a great hurry. This story is so confusing. I love it. The little tailor went onwards, always following his own pointed nose. After he had walked for a long time, in fact, he came to the courtyard of a royal palace, and as he felt weary, he lay down on the grass and fell asleep. Whilst he lay there, the people came and inspected him on all sides, and read on his girdle 7 at one stroke. "Ah," said they, "what does the great warrior here in the midst of peace? He must be a mighty lord." Oh boy, this is really just fake it till you make it, huh? They went and announced him to the king, and gave it as their opinion that if war should break out, this would be a weighty and useful man who ought on no account to be allowed to depart. The counsel pleased the king, and he sent one of his courtiers to the little tailor and offered him military service when he awoke. The ambassador remained standing by the sleeper, waited until he stretched his limbs and opened his eyes, and then conveyed to him this proposal. "For this very reason I have come here," the tailor replied. "I am ready to enter the king's service." He was therefore honorably received, and a special dwelling was assigned to him. The soldiers, however, were set against the little tailor, and wished him 1,000 miles away. "What is to be the end of this?" they said amongst themselves. "If we quarrel with him, and he strikes about him, 7 of us will fall at every blow. Not one of us can stand against him." They came therefore to a decision, betook themselves in a body to the king, and begged for their dismissal. "We are not prepared," said they, "to stay with a man who kills 7 at one stroke." The king was sorry that for the sake of one he should lose all his faithful servants, wished that he never set eyes on the tailor, and would willingly have been rid of him again. But he did not venture to give him his dismissal, for he dreaded lest he should strike him and all his people dead, and place himself on the royal throne. He thought about it for a long time, and at last found good counsel. He sent to the little tailor and caused him to be informed that as he was such a great warrior, he had one request to make to him. Oh God. In a forest of his country lived 2 giants. Oh boy, thank you so much for the gifted subs. Hype train, hype train, hype train, hype train. Thank you so much. We're almost at a level 3 already. Like it literally we got 1, 2, and now we're almost at 3. I wonder what the end of this story is going to be. So far, this has been a very weird day for stories. Ba, ba, ba. In a forest of his country lived two giants who caused great mischief with their robbing, murdering, ravaging, and burning, and no one could approach them without putting himself in danger of death. If the tailor conquered and killed these two giants, oh, oh my goodness, thank you so much for the bits too. Oh, my goodness, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank everyone. Ah, I'm sorry, I would be louder and more ecstatic, but it is my reading stream day. I'm super stoked though, thank you. Thank you so much. It broke all-time record. Nice. That's super fucking rad. Now we're on our way to level 4. I'm kidding. No one could approach them without putting himself in danger of death. If the tailor conquered and killed these two giants, he would give him his only daughter to wife, and half of his kingdom as a dowry. Likewise, 100 horsemen should go with him to assist him. That would indeed be a fine thing for a man like me, thought the tailor. One is not offered a beautiful princess and half a kingdom every day of one's life. Oh, yes, he replied, I will soon subdue the giants, and do not require the help of the 100 horsemen to do it. He who can hit 7 with one blow has no need to be afraid of 2. The little tailor went forth, and the 100 horsemen followed him. When he came to the outskirts of the forest, he said to his followers, just stay waiting here. I alone will soon finish off the giants. Then he bounded into the forest and looked about right and left. After a while he perceived both giants. They lay sleeping under a tree, and snored so that the branches waved up and down. The little tailor, not idle, gathered 2 pockets full of stone, and with these climbed up the tree. When he was halfway up, he slipped down by a branch until he sat just above the sleepers, and then let one stone after another fall on the breast of one of the giants. For a long time the giant felt nothing, but at last he awoke, pushed his comrade, and said, why art thou knocking me? Thou must be dreaming, said the other. I am not knocking thee. They laid themselves down to sleep again, and then the tailor threw a stone down on the second. What is the meaning of this? Cried the other. Why art thou pelting me? I'm not pelting thee, answered the first, growling. They disputed about it for a time, but as they were weary, they let the matter rest, and their eyes closed once more. The little tailor began his game again, picked out the biggest stone, and threw it with all his might on the breast of the first giant. That is too bad, cried he, and sprang up like a madman, and pushed his companion against the tree until it shook. The other paid him back in the same coin, and they got into such a rage that they tore up the trees and belabored each other so long that at last they both fell down dead on the ground at the same time. How convenient. How super duper convenient was that? Goodness. Let me see. Then the little tailor leapt down. It is a lucky thing, said he, that they did not tear up the tree on which I was sitting, or I should have had to spring on to another like a squirrel. Thank you so much, RZ Monster, for the follow. Thank you for the hydrate too. This fake it till you make it story is very hilarious. Okay, feel free to get nice and comfy. I'll read you to sleep if you'd like. That's kind of half the point of this. Not really for sleeping purposes, but it's a nice and cozy little reading thing, and. Aw, thank you so much. This is one of the 2 outfits that I have. uh, it is a lucky thing, said he, that they did not tear up the tree on which I was sitting, or I should have had I should have had to spring onto another, like a squirrel. But we tailors are nimble. Okay. He drew out his sword and gave each of them a couple of thrusts in the breast, and then went out to the horsemen and said, "Oh, I'm so happy that we got a level 3 hype train. I mean, yeah, 4. Level 4. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that you like my voice. The work is done. I have given both of them their finishing stroke, but it was hard work. They tore up trees in their sore need, and defended themselves with them. But all that is to no purpose when a man like myself comes in, who can kill 7 at one blow. This is fucking silly. But are you not wounded? Asked the horseman. You need not concern yourself about that. Then answered the tailor. It's so silly. They have not bent one hair of mine. The horseman would not believe him, and rode into the forest. There they found the giants swimming in their blood, and all round about lay the torn up trees. The little tailor demanded of the king the promised reward. He, however, repented of his promise, and again bethought himself how he could get rid of the hero. Before thou receivest my daughter and half of my kingdom, said he to him, thou must perform one more heroic deed. In the forest roams a unicorn, which does great harm, and thou must catch it first. What? Wait, when did unicorns become the enemy? I thought unicorns were like appreciated and thought of as cool dudes. Whatever. I fear one unicorn still less than 2 giants. 7 at one blow is my kind of affair. Okay, fine, fucking. He's so cocky. I kind of want him to suffer. He took a rope and an axe with him, went forth into the forest, and again bade those who were sent with him to wait outside. Then again, he is very clever. Not in old fairy tales, they'll shank you real good. In old fairy tales, the unicorns were kind of dicks. Oh boy. He took a rope and an axe with him, went forth into the forest, and again bade those who were sent with him to wait outside. He had not long to seek. The unicorn soon came towards him, and rushed directly on the tailor, as if it would gore him with its horn without more ceremony. Oh my goodness. Softly, softly, it can't be done as quickly as that, said he, and stood still and waited until the animal was quite close, and it sprang nimbly behind the tree. The unicorn ran against the tree with all its strength, and struck its horn so fast in the trunk that it had not strength enough to draw it out again, and thus it was caught. Now I have got the bird, said the tailor, and came out from behind the tree and put the rope around its neck. And then, with the axe, he hewed the horn out of the tree, and when all was ready, he led the beast away and took it to the king. Oh, he wanted to catch it and not kill it, I guess. I don't know. The king still could not give him the promised reward, and made a third demand. Before the wedding, the tailor was to catch him a wild boar that made great havoc in the forest, and the huntsmen should give him their help. Okay, I need to level with the king right now. This guy has taken on 2 giants and also a unicorn. He brought you a literal unicorn, and you're like, the boar will definitely be the one that gets him, right? Right? Jesus. Okay. Willingly, said the tailor. That is child's play. He did not take the huntsman with him into the forest, and they were well pleased that he did not, for the wild boar had several times received them in such a manner that they had no inclination to lie in wait for him. When the boar perceived the tailor, it ran on him with foaming mouth and whetted tusks, like a whetstone. It's spelled whetted like whetstone, so I'm gonna guess it's like sharpened is what it means. And was about to throw him to the ground, but the active hero sprang into a chapel which was near, and up to the window at once, and in one bound out again. The boar ran in after him, but the tailor ran around outside and shut the door behind it. And then the raging beast, which was much too heavy and awkward to leave out of the window, was caught. Oh, and then it was caught. Okay. The little tailor called the huntsmen thither, that they might see the prisoner with their own eyes. The hero, however, went to the king, who was now, whether he liked it or not, obliged to keep his promise, and gave him his daughter and the half of his kingdom. Had he known that it was no warlike hero, but a little tailor who was standing before him, it would have gone to his heart still more than it did. The wedding was held with great magnificence and small joy, and out of a tailor a king was made. After some time the young queen heard her husband say in his dreams at night, "Boy, make me the doublet, the patch, the pantaloons, or else I will wrap the yard measure over thine ears." Then she discovered in what state of life the young lord had been born, and next morning complained of her wrongs to her father, and begged him to help her to get rid of her husband, who was nothing else but a tailor. The king comforted her, and said, "Leave thy bedroom door open this night, and my servants shall stand outside, and when he has fallen asleep shall go in, find him, oh boy, and take him on board a ship, which shall carry him into the wide world." The woman was satisfied with this, but the king's armor-bearer, who had heard all, was friendly with the young lord, and informed him of the whole plot. "I'll put a screw into that business," said the little tailor. At night he went to bed with his wife at the usual time, and when she thought he had fallen asleep, she got up, opened the door, and then lay down again. The little tailor, who was only pretending to be asleep, began to cry out in a clear voice, "Boy, make me the doublet and patch me the pantaloons, or I will wrap the yard measure over thine ears. I smote 7 at one blow. I killed 2 giants. I brought away 1 unicorn and caught a wild boar. And am I to fear those who are standing outside the room?" When these men heard the tailor speaking thus, they were overcome by a great dread, and ran as if the wild huntsmen were behind them, and none of them would venture anything further against him. So the little tailor was a king, and remained one to the end of his life. That's fucking crazy. So the next one is Cinderella, and I usually only read for about 3 hours. So I'm actually going to call it here because I don't know how long Cinderella is, and I'm a little bit out of practice with reading. I want to make sure that I rest my voice very well. Plus, we read a lot. We read a lot of stories today. Oof. I do love old fairy tales. They're very entertaining. Hi, Nyasa. How are you doing? We are actually doing, well, I'm about to end the reading stream. Tomorrow, well, not tomorrow, next Tuesday, I will be reading Cinderella, which is going to be entertaining to say the least. I'm very excited to read that one. Today we read through quite a few very interesting stories. It, they are certainly interesting. Oh my goodness. For now, though, I'm going to get a raid going. Let's see. I want to do VTuber. I want to do another VTuber. See, that's singing. Anyone that I'm following on, actually? A little bit, a little bit. Let's see. We will raid, Vampykins, who's another very awesome gothy VTuber. She's super rad. It looks like she does ASMR, at least sometimes. I think right now she's doing some kind of subathon thing. She's playing Elden Ring. So yeah, thank you all so much for coming by. Have a lovely day, and be sure to God, I really need to have a copy pasta of raid thingy. Anyway, thank you all so much. I will see you on Thursday. Goodbye.